All right, good afternoon. My name is Cindy Heine. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and I will be serving as the moderator for this forum for candidates for Fayette County Public School Board, District 5. The League of Women Voters of Lexington is the sponsor today. All 4 of the candidates initially in this race were invited to participate today. Mr. Mark Stringer has withdrawn from the race, and we just learned today that Miss Amy Beasley, who originally had agreed to participate, was not able to participate this afternoon. So the remaining candidates will be a part of the forum: Mr. Arnold L. Farr and Miss Amanda Amy Green. We're following the League of Women Voters policies and procedures for this forum. In order to give the candidates a fair chance to be heard, we've randomly drawn via random.org for the order of opening remarks and questions and for the order of closing. Candidates will each have 60 seconds to introduce themselves, 60 seconds to respond to questions, and then 60 seconds for closing. The questions today have been generated by the League with input from people from the public. We'll begin with opening comments. Ms. Green, you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
Thank you. My heart is with the kids. I am a mother, a professional educator, and a lifelong volunteer. I volunteer in the schools on a daily or weekly basis when I was allowed to go in before COVID. This is my 4th year as a parent representative on the Site-Based Council, and that is the decision-making body over each school. So it's like the mini school board for the school. So I have served on that for 4 years at my elementary school where my kids go. So I feel like I have a good idea of what the responsibilities look like on a school board. And I would be excited to have the opportunity to serve not just my small school community, but the entire Fayette County school community. I am blessed to be a part of this. I am honest and humble and am willing to listen to anybody and to just work for the betterment of our kids.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Farr, your opening remarks.
Thank you for having me. I have 4 kids. All 4 of them have gone through the Fayette County public school system. I'm a professor at the University of Kentucky. And one of the things that inspired me to run is that I've been an educator for 26 years. And I've noticed in my own students how well they're prepared or not prepared. And quite often that is a factor of the schools that they've come from. And that concerned me greatly when I saw how some of them were not as prepared as they should have been. That inspired me to run so that I can somehow have an impact on the public school system. Also, I spent my entire adult life as an advocate for social justice and especially representing the marginalized groups. And these ills in our society also find their way into our public school system. And I find that they're inadequately addressed. And I want to play a role in addressing issues of inequity.
All right, thank you. Mr. Farr, you'll have the first question first. What is your personal vision for students in Fayette County?
My personal vision for students in Fayette County is first of all, to receive a quality education and for all students to receive a quality education. And the reason I stress all students is our students come to us from different backgrounds, different walks of life. Some students come from families that have less resources than other families. And one of my functions on the board would be to consider the differences in our student groups and how to remedy those differences where there's inequity involved so that they all receive a high level education.
Thank you. Ms. Green?
Yes, my vision for the students in Fayette County is that they can grow here in Fayette County in a positive and thought-provoking atmosphere, that they can reach their full potential, that they feel loved, they feel valued, and that they can pursue a life that is full of success, but most importantly, happiness. And I agree with Dr. Farr that the inequities need to be addressed, and that is a position that the school board has. And we need to reach every student, and we can address that in many different ways with curriculum, with personnel, with budget. with policies, and I would like to address that on all those levels.
Thank you. Ms. Green, Green, you'll take the next question. The COVID pandemic has created the need for non-traditional instruction, fondly or unfondly known as NTI, for our students. What have you observed to be the greatest challenges of NTI, and how will you as a board member work to address them?
I think some of the greatest challenges with NTI is the disruption of the family daily pattern, with people having to readjust when and where they may go to work. And I think the resources for the students as well, making sure that they have all of those, the insecurities that we see outside of just education, the food. My vision for the students in Fayette County is that they can grow here in Fayette County in a positive and thought-provoking atmosphere, that they can reach their full potential, that they feel loved, they feel valued, and that they can pursue a life that is full of success, but most importantly, happiness. And I agree with Dr. Farr that the inequities need to be addressed, and that is a position that the school board has. And we need to reach every student, and we can address that in many different ways, with curriculum, with personnel, with budget, with policies, and I would like to address that on all those levels.
Thank you. Ms. Green, you'll take the next question. The COVID pandemic has created the need for non-traditional instruction, fondly or unfondly known as NTI, for our students. What have you observed to be the greatest challenges of NTI, and how will you as a board member work to address them?
I think some of the greatest challenges with NTI is the disruption of the family daily pattern, with people having to readjust when and where they may go to work. And I think the resources for the students as well, making sure that they have all of those, the insecurities that we see outside of just education, the food, the housing, and the shelter, or the food and the housing issues. So I think the greatest challenge with NTI is the disruption of the daily day with the schedules. But I do think that we can come together as a community and really make sure that our students are getting everything they need, that we are supporting the students, we're supporting the schools, and we can see the positives as well. We have heard from students that they have a chance to relearn, to focus also in these learning situations. And so I think that we need to see the benefits, even in these extraordinary times, the different ways of learning.
All right, thank you. Mr. Farr.
Yeah, COVID has revealed a lot to us about our society in terms of basic everyday problems prior to COVID, and they've been highlighted now and sort of are reflected in struggles we have with school. For example, the inequities that I talked about, there are students who are from families who simply do not have the kind of access they need for learning online, and some of them have fallen behind slightly because of that. Also, I agree with Ms. Green in terms of family structure and how family structure has been disrupted. And parents are stuck in a place where they have to stay home and educate their children, and they have to work at the same time. And there's a lack of resources to sort of pull off those two very difficult tasks.
All right, thank you. Mr. Farr, this question, what do you see as your biggest responsibility as a member of the school board?
My biggest responsibility is to the students, making sure the students that their needs are met, they're all are treated fairly, and that they don't become victims of backroom politicking by members of the board and administrations. So I put the students first. Also, creating lines of communication between administrators, teachers, families, and members of the board, and other organizations in our society, in our community, that might be of assistance when we need them. For example, when we need funding for various projects for our students. So I see myself sort of being a communicator in a way.
All right, Ms. Green.
Yes, I see my biggest responsibility as a member of the school board to be an advocate for the students, for each and every student, to take the time to talk to the teachers, the administrators, the parents, the community members, and the students themselves, and listen to what is working for them and what isn't working, and then listen to their solutions, because our jobs on the board is to make decisions and to suggest policies, but we need to listen to our whole community, every stakeholder, for their ideas and validate those and then push those forward, and make it all work as a team, find the resources to make it work within the different committees that work underneath the school board, and to work side by side with the superintendent as he is the educational advisor to the board.
Okay, and Ms. Green, you'll take this question next. What are your financial priorities for Fayette County Public Schools?
My financial priorities for the public schools right now are to really focus on the social inequities and injustices that are going on and to correct those. That means historically accurate curriculum, historically accurate and equitable books. The library system really needs to be reviewed and make sure, for example, that we have books that depict police not only as community helpers, but sometimes there's traumatic experiences involved with police, and we need to make sure that books mirror every student's perception. And so I think really the focus needs to be with the curriculum, and we need to give some of that power, decision-making power, back to the schools and the local educators so that they can decide what their specific population needs and what they need to grow for those exact students.
Okay, Mr. Farr.
One of the things I always teach my students is that in any class you take, or whatever it is, even my own class, always ask yourself what is missing, what is being left out of the story. And so in this way, I'm in agreement with Ms. Green in terms of the curriculum sort of really reflecting more of the American experience. So our curriculum is sort of based on a kind of narrative that has left out the experiences of various groups of people in our society, in our community. And those stories need to be told. And I think if those stories are told and told properly, then some of the chaos that we see happening in our society right now, some of the division that's in our overall society will be diminished at least a little bit, right? And so for me, shaping a fair and just democratic society begins with education and the curriculum. Thank you.
Okay. The last few years, the Fayette County Public Schools budget has had increased funding for equitable access to gifted programs and opportunities. Do you believe these funds have increased this access, and what else can be done?
Oh, yes, I do think those funds are helpful, and I do think we need more funding in that area. And part of getting more funding in that area is, for me, connecting our school system, branching out, connecting it to various organizations in our community that have some interest in this form of education and outcome.
I think that it has made an impact. I think we can do better. I definitely see, even just in my kids' schools, that there's not an equitable ratio of students in the gifted programs. I think we're relying heavily on parents to push forward, and we need to realize that sometimes the teachers are the voice of our voiceless children. The parents of some of our children are working all the time. Sometimes they're not being truly reached out to. Sometimes they can't speak our language. And so I think we really need to empower our teachers and our community members. Maybe a Sunday school teacher can really push for representation of their student in the gifted program. So I think we need to, and this doesn't cost money, we just need to reach out more to the teachers, to the community members, and ask them also, who do they think would benefit from these programs, and respect and trust their support.
Okay, Ms. Green, this next question for you. How would you work to enhance the relationships between educators and families, and between board members and families?
So 2 questions: educators and families, board members.
And board members and families.
I think it really, we'll start with the board members and families. I think being available, being transparent, and being honest. Obviously, you can tell I get a little nervous, and that's okay, because other people get nervous too. So if someone comes to me and wants to have a discussion, I'm going to be willing to listen to all sides of theirs and not answer right away. I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to listen and connect them to somebody. And I think for educators and families, it's the same. I think Fayette County is doing a really good job of really pushing the whole child approach in their curriculum, and I would encourage even more so of that, so that the teachers connect with the children, not as just a vessel to put academic information in, but as a vessel of human life, and that they are valued socially and emotionally, and reach out to the parents as well. And if it's hard to reach out, that's okay. Some things in life are hard, but the hard things are worth doing. So figuring out different ways to reach out to the family.
Okay, Mr. Farr.
Yes, so I'll begin with the board members and families. One of my plans early on, before the pandemic, as I was planning to run for the school board, was thinking about how to connect to families. And I'm a big coffee shop guy, right? Meet me at the coffee shop in your area and we'll talk. But now with COVID, I have to rethink that. But I'd still like to stick to that kind of idea, even if it has to be on the internet. It kind of in my Facebook page, my web page, to have conversations with families, make those pages available, be there available for them, and have conversations with family. And at the same time, have those kind of conversations or try to encourage those kind of conversations between teachers and families also. Create a site or a space where the three groups can come together and have conversations about whatever their particular concerns are or whatever issues they're dealing with at the time, so that everybody has a voice.
Okay. And the next question, Mr. Farr.
Mhm.
How do you see yourself working with the superintendent?
Well, I see myself working with the superintendent, hopefully as partners, as a team, members of a team that have put the students first and are focused on what's good for the students. Now, again, I mean, you've got 5 board members and a superintendent, and there's going to be disagreement. And I would hope that we can have disagreements will still be respectful and still come to a solution that at the end of the day is best for the children. But in any event, I think when decisions are made, the superintendent and all board members must be accountable for those decisions. And the process whereby those decisions were made must be transparent to parents and teachers.
Ms. Green.
Thank you. So I agree. I think the board members and the superintendent are partners in pursuing success here in Fayette County Public Schools. I know officially the superintendent acts as the educational advisor to the board. And I think that right now, Mr. Koch does a fantastic job of that, listening to him. And I think the board can also reach out and hear other positions and ideas about the education system and just working together as a collaborative team. It's not divisive. One person doesn't have more knowledge, well, they may, but one person is not more important in their opinion than another. So just really being a community and a thought-provoking atmosphere, and everyone is respectful. And I think that, we can make Fayette County an example for the nation. We just work together and just put our differences aside and put the children first, which I think we do. But I would just encourage that even more so, and especially the children that are voiceless. We need to stand up for them.
Okay. Ms. Green, next question. Give one example of a district policy you would like to see changed.
I would like to see a district policy about the equity policy. I would like to see it actually change to be a racial equity policy. I know that's a big issue, and I've watched Jefferson County struggle, and they finally got it passed. I am not an expert, but I would definitely like to see that get going, to see if we could create a racial equity policy.
Okay, Mr. Farr.
Yeah, the one thing I would like to see change, I think there's an equity board or council that we have. And at one point, they had a teacher on that council, and something was changed in the bylaws that made it possible to have that council without a teacher. And that would be one of the first things I would want to change, because the teachers are there with our children every day. And if there's something going on in terms of problems with equity, then the teachers are there to sort of witness the impact of that on the student. And so I think it's absolutely necessary to have a teacher's voice on that council. And that's one of the first policy changes I would really look into changing.
Okay. Next question, Mr. Farr. What do you think about the school testing and accountability system? How is that helping to improve learning for our children?
Well, I have a serious problem with there being such an emphasis on testing, because what has happened is the focus has shifted toward testing as opposed to the process of education, right? The idea of a test is to sort of, at the end of the day, after you've been educated or gone through the process of educating yourself about a topic, is to then see where you are in terms of how much of that knowledge you've maintained, right? But now with the focus being simply on the test, I think a lot of our students aren't properly being educated because they're being geared toward tests. One of the things I saw as a professor is I have students who would write their papers and they would use certain words and they would have no idea what the word meant. And it turns out that it was a word they learned as they were studying for a test. They learned the definition of the word, but not how to properly use the word in context. And I see that a lot in my own students. So I'll stop there.
Okay, Ms. Green,
Could you repeat the question?
what do you think about the school testing and accountability system? How can it be used to improve student learning?
I agree with Dr. Farr. I don't think the testing actually improves the student learning. I think that that is too much of an end goal and we're not focusing on the progress or the growth of our students. Especially like our Spanish speaking population, they are brilliant, but yet we are testing them on an English speaking test and grading their abilities there. That's not fair. And so we're ignoring an entire population because they can't perform on one specific test. But there's so much growth and potential in those students. And if we took away the focus on the test, the teachers could focus on the whole child. They could focus on the relationship building. And I've seen as a teacher in both public and UK, that if you can have the time to build the rapport with the students and they know you respect them, then they will work as hard and tirelessly as they can to be the best version of themselves. And I think that's the goal of all the teachers and our parents, that we just want our children to reach their personal best.
Okay, thank you. And this is going to be the last question before we go to closing remarks. Ms. Green, what is the strongest quality you bring to the school board?
The strongest quality I bring to the school board is love. I am not about being divisive. I am not about separating people. I'm about bringing them together and raising them up, no matter what their strengths are or their differences. And I feel like my heart would grow to gaining 42,000 children that I could care about and nurture and do what's in my hands to do to make their lives better. And so I think my strongest quality is love.
All right, and Mr. Farr.
Yeah, I think my strongest quality is being an advocate for the least of these and being very serious about recognizing who are the least of these or the marginalized and how they are impacted by our school system, how they're impacted by the decisions that we make. I spent my entire life fighting for the least of these. And in some of our public places and our schools and whatnot, to some degree, we pretend that they do not exist and they're ignored and even further marginalized. And that's been my life work. And I think that's my strength.
All right, thank you both for your thoughtful answers and comments. We'll now turn to closing remarks. The candidates drew a second time, or we drew for them on random.org for the order of closing, and they'll each have 60 seconds. Mr. Farr, you'll go first.
Yes. So in Fayette County, 49% of our student body are students of color. 50% of our students are from families that are in poverty. And I came from a working class background. My great-great-grandparents were slaves, and my great-grandparents and grandparents were sharecroppers. And although they weren't allowed to get an education because they had to go back and work in the cotton fields or whatnot in South Carolina, they knew the importance of education. They valued education, and they instilled that in myself, my brothers, and my cousins. In fact, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, only had a 7th grade education, but she set us all down every day and made us recite our ABCs and count and that kind of thing. And so with only a 7th grade education, she pushed us to get as much education as we should get. And what I want is for students to see somebody like me who like them that can make it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Green.
Thank you. I would be there to, it would be an honor to serve on the school board. Education has been a key to my life. I grew up in poverty. I remember licking food stamps and placing them until it filled out enough so we could go get matching dishes. You know, I remember going to middle school and learning that spaghetti could be made with meat and not lentils. But all throughout my education, wherever it was that I lived, my mom was respected. I found father figures within the schools, and I was uplifted and encouraged and supported. And it's only with the support of the public education systems that I was in that I am who I am today. I was able to be valedictorian and go to college for free. Otherwise, I would not have been able to afford it. And so I would want to be able to make that possibility, education, be that kind of change factor for every student, whoever they are here in Fayette County.
Thank you very much. If we were in person with a live audience, we would ask for a rousing round of applause. We'd like to thank the candidates, both of you, for participating today. If our audience members are interested in league membership, check our website at lwvlexington.com. And the public viewing audience and voters can find more information about the candidates, as well as information about the changes in voting because of COVID at the League's online voter guide, vote411.org. Thank you again for joining us today, and be sure to vote, whether it's in person or absentee. Thank you again.